We'll see. But anyways, I guess I'm gonna sit in on this and. All right, but I'll talk to you later. Bye.
environment. So the three skills, three foundations are communication, trust, and visibility. And we're going to talk a little about each of those. Communication, honestly, even though I have it listed first, it's foundational. It goes first, it goes last, it goes in between each layer, right? It is sort of the bridge, if you will, between all of those things. And, okay, pop quiz. I didn't know you had this. I can see facial expressions. If I am emailing with someone and we've gone back and forth more than twice, I might need to pick up the phone, right? Because something is getting lost in translation. So that verbal communication is key, right? Like I said, it is foundation, it is glue, it is, I wish I knew some building terms, right? All those things that you need in order to have that strong community, that strong team. All right. So talking about communication, I mentioned emails. As a leader of a team, you will find yourself communicating probably more than you ever thought you would need to, more than you may like to, right? And even more than you might expect, right? So let's talk about some of the things that are involved or some of the types of communication that you have as a leader in general. Anyone? What are some things that you have to communicate as a leader?
When you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Expectations.
Expectations, absolutely.
When you're giving feedback, constructive criticism.
Change, yep, absolutely.
Progress.
Progress, right? Think about that for folks who are working remotely, right? It becomes even more important. If I'm not aware of your expectations of me, then how can I meet your expectations, right? You have to be clear in your communication. You're going to do this in a myriad of ways. It may be by email, it may be by phone call, it may be by Teams or Zoom meetings, right? But like I said before, communication. I can't say that word enough, right? And now, if I'm in the room with you and we're talking and I'm explaining something and I see a look of puzzle, confusion on your face, right? Then I know to ask, am I making any sense? Right? Or you seem like you're not quite with me here. Like, what can we do? Right? If I just send an email to someone and they read it, what happens? Think about it. You get an email from your boss. I hate that word, from your leader.
You tend to immediately have a negative lens if you don't understand versus positive intent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, right? If I'm confused, am I gonna just go right back and say I'm confused? Probably not, right? I'm gonna try to figure it out. Then I'm gonna create this narrative. Then I'll be all off base, right? So if you are communicating something around expectations for a project, for example, what I encourage leaders to do is have a meeting, have your teams meeting so that if they're here in Northwest Arkansas and you're in Little Rock, have that meeting so that you can have the conversation and then follow that conversation up with an email versus the other way around. Okay?
Absolutely.
Because you can save yourself and that employee so much time, effort, energy, stress, right? Because you had the conversation, right? And then Dale, you probably know where I'm going with this. You also have instant documentation, okay? Right? Because you have followed up that conversation with an email. And listen, I don't ever want to have to go that route with someone, but if I do, I'd rather have the documentation than not, right? So,
Absolutely.
a few little, ways that works to your benefit. All right, so technology enabled teamwork, we already talked about it, email, like okay, so I traveled up yesterday afternoon and I was in the hotel last night around 11, still looking at email, right? Because we get so many. And so we're not ever going to get rid of it. It's here to stay. I'm sorry, right? But we can find ways to use it to our advantage, especially like I said, when we're leading remote or virtual teams. I would again, if you don't take anything else from today, if you are communicating expectations, do that verbally, preferably in a way that you can see the other person, right? And then follow it up with email, not the other way around. We use Microsoft Teams a lot now inside of our organization. The conference is on Teams today as well. We started out with Zoom. I still prefer Zoom if I'm facilitating a virtual class. It's just easier for me to use. SharePoint, right? All those ways that we can have data shared in one place so that everyone is, has access to it within that team community. Microsoft Teams is really great for that. I will say that. We set up different work groups in our area so that if there's files that, what once upon a time just lived on my computer or my desktop, now I'll put those things out there and everyone has access to them. Yes, sir.
I don't know if you're taking questions during your presentation.
Sure, that's fine.
Until
That's
the
fine.
end. You mentioned email,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm late, I apologize, I don't know what your position, but I'm assuming you're a leader at your organization.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you set as your expectations for email?
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned you were up like last night at 11 o'clock with an email.
Mm-hmm.
So you're expecting people in your team to be up at 11 o'clock with an email?
No, I really don't. So inside of our organization, we have this, I think it's still a written rule, Dale, that you reply to email within 24 hours, right? Now, there are some areas where they say 24 to 48 hours. What I encourage folks to do is if it's something that is going to require research, just shoot a quick email to that person and let them know sort of an anticipated time frame that you'll get back with them. So it's as simple as that. Now, I am a natural night owl and my team knows that, so I've shared that with them. So I have some folks who are online as early as 5:30. God love them. I'm not. But now you might see an email from me at 11:30 p.m., right? And then they'll get it early. So we have the flexibility in the work that we do to where, if you're a night owl and early bird, you're getting those things.
Follow up to that.
Yes.
You're the leader of the group, and you send an email at 11:30, is that unintentional pressure on that person to respond?
No, because usually what I'm sending is gonna be something light. And I don't expect anyone to respond at that time. Like 9 times out of 10, my early birds are already in the bed like 9, but I know they're gonna see it the next day. I do that primarily because I'm 48 now and my brain doesn't hold information as long. Or sometimes
You just insulted me because I'm waiting past for you.
And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll set the email up to go out later, right? I've done that as well. So we find the things that work for us. And then the other thing is I don't tend to work late like that very often, but everybody knew I was traveling yesterday. It was more so for my sanity so that Monday I don't come back to like 100. It was all my own self-pressure. And full transparency, that's what it is. I hate, so this is, okay, little thing about me. On Fridays, I like to end with like an empty inbox. Like everything is either responded to, or it has been moved to a calendar or task. So that Monday, because I'm already dreading getting up early because I stayed up way too late on Sunday, right? I come in and anything that's there, I know it's new. And I know it needs attention now because everything else has either been handled or moved to a task or that sort of thing. So it's me. Yeah. I don't know what you call that, but fill in the blank or whatever that is. That's me. Yes, Eric.
One of the challenges I've noticed with remote teams, especially in relation to Microsoft Teams and SharePoint, is that we build these abundant resource libraries with lots and lots and lots of information. And there's almost an expectation that everyone's just going to know where to go to get something,
Yeah.
or that they know to review the right resources. So I find that to be particularly challenging with virtual teams, to make sure that that's communicated or organized effectively, so that people know where to go to find something, because otherwise that can be a deal breaker.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I'll be, again, transparent on our team. Teams is still relative, has it been a year or so? So we're all still sort of adjusting to that. Before we had like shared folders and everybody, and then those got so disorganized. I need an intern to come in and probably organize all that and move it to text. But I didn't think to put in a rec for one, so. So yeah, absolutely. To your point, Eric, I'm gonna put this. Nothing that we do, no systems that we put in place will ever take the place of communication.
Of course.
Communicate, 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 right?
Except for ChatGPT.
Yes.
Right, but even in that, you tell folks, I put this out there, or what have you. Yeah, great. I like discussion. Y'all keep talking to me. I love it. So I'm gonna tell you, okay, so I'm a storyteller, not like L-I-E, like, because when I was growing up, I couldn't say L-I-E to an adult. I had to say someone told a story. So I'm not telling that kind of story, but I share narratives, okay? So one of the hardest things for me when we moved to doing our training virtually was not having this interaction, right? We had a lot of folks at home who didn't have cameras, so I would just see your name across, and I always felt like, am I making YouTube content? Is anybody there? So I tried to make sure that I used the reaction features, I used the chat, but maybe it's that Gen X in me, but this right here is like, it fills my cup, right? But over time, I got used to the virtual environment. I got to where we had more people with cameras, and they were more involved and engaged as well because they had the cameras. So anyway, that's my sidebar. All right, so building trust virtually, right? We have some folks who started in our organization during the pandemic, and they're leaders of teams of folks that they've never met, right? So you talk about a challenge. I'm new to an organization. I have team members of folks who have already been there. They knew each other pre-pandemic, so they know the sidebars, so they know to ask about someone's puppy or a new grandbaby. I don't know all those things, right? So building trust in a virtual environment is another key piece of the puzzle, right? For those, in order for us to build that community. So even though we don't see one another often, what are some ways that you can have or help your team build trust in a virtual environment?
Share.
Mm-hmm. Say more, please.
So I was in an organization where I worked with 50 other people on the same team, and we got together once a month to have a 1-hour meeting where we would talk about the business, and then we'd go away and do our things. For the first year in that organization, I did not feel connected to anyone. I felt like a lone ranger out in the woods, doing my thing, making my contributions. I now work for an organization where we have daily touch bases. We have Friday coffee buzz, and we get together and we just share about our experiences. We connect more online, and we do so intentionally. And after 2 months, I feel like I'm part of it.
Yeah, absolutely, right? That human connection, that human interaction is so important, right? For building trust, for building community, for building a sense of team. So absolutely. What I tell folks before I get to these key principles, which come from DDI, I have to give them credit. When we think about how we interact with others, I'm going to steal your words again, Eric, being intentional is so important, right? I have, I have 3 team members who are full-time remote, right? I still, during my one-on-ones, I make sure I have that on Teams. I ask them, I don't want just project updates. I want to know how they're doing, right? I worked with them pre-pandemic, so I know, this person has 2 cats, right? I'm going to find something to make that human connection with, right? Because it's like I said, it's invaluable. I can't think of a word right now. My brain is losing words. But there are some key principles that DDI shares around meeting personal needs, right? You've probably seen these before if you've ever taken a class on interviewing, but you want to maintain or enhance the person's self-esteem. Like, so to my point earlier, if I am providing expectations, especially if I'm giving feedback, I don't want to just do that in an email, right? I want to make sure that I'm having that conversation. Listening and responding with empathy is so crucial, period. But if you have teams that you are leading virtually or remotely, it's even more so. I've heard people say when I was doing HR investigations, it's like the person doesn't even listen, like they're listening to respond, they're not listening to understand, right? Anybody ever heard that? So it's so important as leaders that our folks know that we are listening to understand, right? So I was telling someone about Berkman earlier. We were talking about the Berkman. So again, here I am going off on a tangent. True story. It's like the biggest mistakes is the report. And one of the biggest mistakes that folks can make with me is expecting sympathy. No, that sounds like I'm a horrible person, right? I can do great with empathy all day long, right? I can empathize with you having multiple things on your plate. I can empathize with your equipment didn't work and we need to get something out to you. I'm not going to join you in a pity party though, if you're expecting sympathy from me. But I say that to say, as a leader, empathy is so important. I talked earlier about emotional intelligence being important as well. So that all goes hand in hand. Asking for help and encouraging involvement, encouraging your team members to work together on projects, even though they're virtual, right? That gets them involved with one another. If there is something that I have a team member who doesn't understand something, I tell them every time we meet, my door is always open, my cell phone, whatever you need, right? Because I don't want folks feeling like they're alone on an island. I want them to reach out for help. I want them to know that they're not going to be penalized for reaching out for help, right? So that's where that empathy comes in. Because I've been there, done that, where I didn't understand something and I was afraid to ask for help because they're going to think I don't know, right? But in those environments where I was able to ask and know that I wasn't going to be penalized for it, then I learned and I grew more than in those situations where I spent so much time trying to figure it all out, right? That impacted my productivity, right? So I keep that in mind as a leader. Sharing thoughts, feelings, and rationale is, I don't know, it's crucial anyway, but it's like, again, with virtual teams, just kind of take it up a notch, right? Treat it like you just drank a Red Bull, like it's gonna be like high energy. And then providing support without removing responsibility. Those two there are probably the two end-all be-alls for leading virtual teams, right? And when we talk about building trust specifically. So you see, a part of what I've done today is I share thoughts, feelings, memories, right? Because that is so important. It's more than just information that you can share on a screen. We all have lived experiences, right? I'm looking across this audience, we're all adults, right? Different ages and stages of life, but experience nonetheless, right? That we bring to the table. And we bring our full selves, and being able to lead from a place of intention is one thing, but also being genuine, right? So my folks know when they come to me that I care, that I'm empathetic. I have a couple that are still trying to play the sympathy card. You know we had our comparative, right? But seriously though, all of those things is so important. I lost my thought. Bless my heart. But providing support without, that's the one. Providing support without removing responsibility, right? So like I said, if someone comes to you You don't want them to feel penalized for asking the question, but you don't want to take over and do the job for them, right? We've all heard, teach a person to fish versus giving them a fish sandwich, right? And that's basically what you have to do as a leader. Now, you may have some folks who get it instantly. You may have some that you have to revisit it with, right? Do that. Now, if you have someone that is constantly asking you the exact same question and you notice that they don't take notes, tell them to take notes, right? Help them out and help them help themselves, right? That's what we want to do. All right. So visibility, the third component to building community and leading virtual teams. So when we talk about visibility, it's not just you're here in my eyesight, right? But we also want to create a sight line between the organization and those team members, right? We don't want them to be the forgotten folks at home. We want to create a line of sight between you and your team members, and then also with each team member between, peer to peer. So let's talk about each. So ways that we can share what is going on with our team, right, is basically how we create a sight line between the organization and the team. We want to make sure that we are sharing team goals within the team, but then also letting the folks that are above us know what are the goals for this team, right? We want to call out our accomplishments as a team. We have, and most organizations do, we have an intranet site where we're able to share, events and that sort of thing. If there's a new rollout of a program, for example, making sure there's an article about that on your intranet. Ours is called Inside Loop, right? Highlighting those accomplishments. And then for your team members, when you're having those one-on-ones, I didn't mention this earlier, but career development, if you know that that is something of interest for that person, make sure you give space for that. Share those opportunities for them to advance. Share the opportunities for them to go and continue their education or get professional development hours, right? Those sorts of things, so that they don't feel like I'm just, no one acknowledges my work, no one sees me, no one knows I'm here, right? So making sure that your team members have that and keep connection with the organization. All right, so sight line between leader and team. All right, another pop quiz. I'm good on time. So when I worked at Walmart, we had something called CBWA. Anybody ever heard that one? You may have heard it as MBWA, okay? Coaching by walking around, right? So I would walk, we'd have leaders who would walk from cubicle to cubicle, right? Just kind of seeing how things are going, that sort of thing. Well, we lose that opportunity, of course, in the virtual world, right? So what we do now in the virtual environment is very different, right? I don't get that opportunity, right? I have to trust my team members. Let me tell you, one of the hardest things for leaders in our side of our organization was, how do I know people are working? I can't see you in your seat. I need a behind in that chair to know you're working, right?
And even when they're not sitting down behind their desk, that doesn't mean they're working.
Exactly. Right? So what's the proof that people are working?
Productivity.
Yeah, the results, the output. So as leaders of virtual teams, you want to manage the work, not the individual necessarily, right? So it's not about me knowing how busy you are, but it's about me seeing the outcome, the product, the project in on time, right? Keeping that communication open again so that folks know they can come to you and talk about those things. Now, we do have areas of the business where they are able to track how long you spent on the call, the amount of time it took you to process a claim, that sort of thing. But that is more of that sort of transactional work, right? So yeah, it's easy to track those things. But projects, creating new programs, creating, I'm trying to think like marketing campaigns, those sorts of things, I don't need to see proof day by day of how many hours you spent on that. I'm gonna know based on the product, right, that you develop. So very, very important for us to remember that we're not just managing people, we're managing the work. All right, so because I'm Gen Z. No, I'm kidding. No, probably why. I'm not Gen Z, I'm Gen X. Oh my God.
Is that?
I know. Wanna be, I wanna be, I don't wanna be younger than I am. I think that's too low, is it? But I have a little activity for y'all to do. And you can work it out somewhere. Where you can work in both partners. Look at that, building teams, even in the virtual. All right, so take about 5 minutes. These are a couple of more scenario-based questions for the most part. Take about a minute to work alone, and then I'm gonna give you a few minutes to discuss with your partner, and then we'll discuss as a group. Okay, gotcha.
So you have to pick just one?
Preferably. But I better know which question you're on. All of it.
And is there somewhere we can find these questions online so I can drop it in the?
Please, I send you the link. What's a good one?
If not, you can just send it to one of us later and I'll
Okay.
put it in the attachments
Good
on the
deal.
webpage.
That'll work. So if you answer all the questions on your own, then you can discuss with a partner, just kind of give them dialogue going around while you answer that way. What thoughts you put into the answer. Yeah. Work together. Oh, yeah, there's 2 on the back, if you didn't see it, there's 4 or 5 on the back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so here's schedule 5 months.
Okay, perfect. So I'm like,
So I was just saying, number one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, I would say if she tries not to never. But I'm thinking here, if she picks it out, she needs in each team. She can connect with each one or connect, depending on what the work schedule is.
Discussion's been about.
So that's that one.
5 minutes. 5. There's 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, there's a 15-minute break. So,
Well, this one.
Yes.
Yeah. But the value of building combine doesn't mean that people are going to understand specific information. It simply means that combine. We're all wrong, a lot of people. Not about how we're going to benefit this business that we're
Okay, you
doing.
can take the issues.
That was the one that the only one that I was not sure about. So for those virtual leadership and board meeting business, and I really do feel like both of these are the right, they don't receive emotion. And the more virtual somebody or
I hate to end this conversation. It sounds like really great dialogue going on, but we had less time left.
we'll say 3.
You said
5. I mean, if you guys are okay cutting a couple minutes from your break, we can get 5 minutes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and debrief. Sorry, I had 3:45 in my head, but that's when the next section.
I did too. So that's why I'm like, yeah, we're good.
So these are the questions. How does radio communication impact the operations of virtual teams? Y'all obviously talked through it, so what did you come up with as the answer for that one? Or did you?
We chose building a cohesive team that openly shares information.
Yeah, you did. You worked together. Yeah, absolutely, right? So something that we did, my team, at the time we were under our leader who is now retiring, but we purposefully scheduled meetings every other week for like 30, 45 minutes. They were like our catch-up meetings, right? We were just, we called it pass the mic, right? So I would go and then I would pass it over to Dale and then Dale would pass it over to James, right? That kind of thing. And it's just a way for us to stay connected, right? And keeping that cohesion.
Yeah, I want to add one thing to that.
Mhm.
So the organization I was with, we had monthly meetings. They did very little to establish team cohesiveness. The new organization I work with, we have daily synchronizations, 30 minutes. We might not even use all 30 minutes, but we have it if we need it. If we don't need it, and it works really, really well. We do the same kind of round robin thing, and it's much more effective. So the frequency is going to be team dependent.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. All right, so I put the answer up there to the second one now. This one, you could potentially have gone with another one. Did anybody pick another one for number 2?
Well, retaining top performance was my second choice.
Let's see here.
But you're really trying to, oh, you're talking about number 2
Number
still?
2.
Yeah. Virtual team leaders need to show they care about their employees and want to retain top performers. You don't want to retain everybody, not just your top performers.
Right.
You want to build everybody up.
Right.
So that's why I didn't choose.
Yeah, so that one was kind of, all right. So this one's more of the case study one to me. Rebecca has been tasked leading the virtual team. What should she do to effectively lead the team?
He said, well, we actually put 2 together.
Okay.
Schedule bi-monthly phone calls to connect with each member, but apply conscious effort and flexibility, and those kind of go together.
Yeah. All right. I think the key on this one is more so thinking back to the conversation we had right before around managing the work, right? But yeah, you still got to communicate with the folks, right, to know that. All right. Frequent outreach, how it benefits, the speakers up, right? We don't want folks to feel isolated, We want to continue on building that sense of community and strong working relationship, right? And then the final one is pretty straightforward, right? I think we've all kind of talked about that throughout the session. So with that, yes.
I want to add one thing to that.
Mhm.
How you structure your teams is very important. Because I worked in the organization I keep referring to in the past.
Mhm.
We were all given singular tasks. You go build this course, you go build that curriculum, you go do this needs analysis. It was never the two of you go and do that, or the three of you go and do that. And that team structure of having multiple people that are interdependent upon each other
Mhm.
works so much better to build the trust, to build the visibility, to build the communication capability. Because if you don't have that joint aspect to your teams, then you're still gonna have the same problem.
Right, absolutely, absolutely, so important. And in the work that we do, especially because we are impacting, in my mind, so I don't get the opportunity to sell insurance, right? I don't get the opportunity to interact with our external customers when they call in customer service line. What I do have though is the opportunity to impact the engagement of our employees, to impact the skills of our leaders, right? So I take that very seriously. And the way that we do that now, while it is virtual in many cases, it is still just as important. It's what keeps me connected to the overall vision of the organization. It's what keeps me connected to the mission of the organization, right? And how I impact. All right, so quick little quote there. In a world that is constantly changing, it is to our advantage to learn how to adapt and enjoy something better or different, if I could add in, right? So we are more and more going to find ourselves in situations where we're leading virtually or we're working with partners in a virtual environment, that sort of thing. So the more able we are to embrace that sooner versus later, then the better off we'll be in the long run. And if COVID-19 didn't teach me anything else, it taught me that. All right, there's my contact information. I have a couple of cards if anybody would like one. Thank you so much for your time and the